I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Gentleman yields back. Chair recognizes Ms. Lee from Pennsylvania.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's easy for my colleague to Monday morning quarterback about the time that it took to evacuate more than 120,000 people from Afghanistan. But I'd like to remind them of the reality on the ground. Unfortunately, the fact is that starting the evacuation mission any sooner would have likely yielded the same result. As President Biden said on August 12, 2021, the evacuation of thousands of people from Kabul is going to be hard and painful no matter when it started and when we began. It would have been true if we had started a month ago or a month from now. There is no way to evacuate this many people without pain and loss of heartbreaking images you see on television. If the evacuation mission had begun any earlier, it would have signaled a lack of confidence in the Afghan government when its collapse at that time was not inevitable certainty. To my own, I want to say that since the Taliban takeover, women in Afghanistan have been denied their fundamental rights and freedoms. They're invisible, isolated, and suffocated in their own country. Girls can no longer go to school beyond 6th grade. Women can no longer work or travel without a male chaperone. Watching this unfold has been a sobering reminder of how swiftly and aggressively women's and girls' rights can be taken away, something we are all too aware of here in the U.S. as women's access to health care is systematically eroded. In another significant measure, women were barred from working for national and international NGOs. Ms. Andrella, how did the Taliban's decision to ban women from working in NGOs exacerbate the humanitarian crisis?
Thank you for that question. It's undeniable that the inability for women aid workers, first with NGOs who were banned in December, and more recently with UN partners, is having a significant impediment to be able to provide services at all to women for health care, for food assistance, and for education. It's my understanding that there are some exceptions being made, but it's ad hoc throughout the country. It's not consistent. And as recently as right now, the UN is currently reassessing what programming they're going to be able to continue.
So would you agree that there are very legitimate and serious concerns about the survival of Afghan women and girls as a result of this ban?
Absolutely.
The United Nations stated that it may have to pull out of Afghanistan in May. The Taliban continues to refuse to allow women to work for the organization. What will the impact of that withdrawal have on women, and as well as the rest of Afghan civil society?
The work that we've done in conjunction with our UN partners and oversight partners, my office works very collaboratively and closely with the WFPIG, for example, UNHCR and other UN organizations that right now are reassessing their programming. It will impact our ability and their ability to investigate any cases or allegations of misconduct, sexual exploitation and abuse, trafficking in persons, or even just the bare necessity delivery of humanitarian assistance.
Thank you. In February, hundreds of Afghan refugees in Islamabad, Pakistan, organized a protest over extreme delays in the approval of U.S. visas. Many of these people are journalists and rights activists meant to be fast-tracked on Priority 1 and Priority 2 visas. Yet they and thousands more remain as our visa processing remains backlogged and our refugee resettlement system remains desperately underfunded. Ms. Shaw, as you've closely reviewed the SIV program, would you commit to a similar review of Priority 1 and 2 visa processing for Afghans?
That's certainly something we can take into consideration as part of our work planning and as part of the broader series of products we're doing on SIV program.
Thank you. Over the last year, around 124,000 people have been evacuated from Afghanistan. Our communities have stepped up to assist them. My home city of Pittsburgh welcomed over 700 Afghan refugees last year, and Pennsylvania as a whole took in over 2,000. The U.S. is responsible for a lot of the harm caused in Afghanistan, and we must work to repair those harms. We have an obligation to aid our allies who supported American forces as well as their families. We must work to end the harmful annihilation of women's rights perpetuated by the Taliban. I thank you to the panel, and I yield back, Mr. Chairman.